people, of course, trying to reach Europe are fleeing war and persecution at home. Today is the International Day of the Disappeared, and this year the International Committee of the Red Cross in France is putting the focus on people who've disappeared as a result of the conflict in Syria. Since 2012, the organisation has registered tens of thousands of requests to help find missing people. We're here to talk about that. I'm joined by Lucile Marbeau, the spokesperson for the ICRC in France. Thank you for joining us on France 24. First of all, what are enforced disappearances and how do they relate to people in conflict zones like Syria?
Yes, so the International Day of the Disappeared was created in 1983 by the United Nations to really highlight the specific cases of disappearances in conflicts, which are called enforced disappearances. It's basically people being arrested without notifying the families, and so the families remain completely unclear of the fate of their missing relatives. And what we now do is enlarge the scope of this day to all types of disappearances which happen in conflict. So if you take the case of Syria, you have, of course, people who have gone missing during combat, whether they be civilians or fighters. There are also people who have gone missing going to Europe. And what we now call today is for families in Europe who don't know how to look for their missing relatives, whether these families be Syrians or Europeans, to approach the Red Cross so that we can help them try to find their relatives. So as I was saying, whether they were disappeared in the conflict in Syria itself or coming to Europe.
Right, and
for those who have disappeared.
Sorry,
Yes.
what percentage would you say roughly is of those people trying to escape conflict and taking that very dangerous journey trying to get to Europe?
I unfortunately don't have the precise figures, but I can give you one. We developed since 2013 a specific tool for migrants who have gone missing going to Europe, and it's called Trace the Face. www.tracetheface.org. And the principle basically of this website is for people to advertise their search online. So they put their photos online. And right now we have 5,700 persons who have their photos online. Within them, there are Syrians. Syrians are actually the fourth nationality using this tool today. And in the database globally, we have 20,000 missing persons which are reported. So this can give you a bit of a figure of the number of persons who have disappeared going to Europe, whether they were fleeing conflict or just hard economical situations in their countries.
So tell us a bit more about how your organisation goes about trying to help people find their loved ones and what kind of a success rate are we talking about?
So for Trace the Face right now, we have a reconnection of one family in average each week. So that gives you an idea a bit of the success. But clarifying the fate of missing persons is always a very long process. It's long for us, but you can imagine that it's even longer for the families of the disappeared, which really are in this terrible certainty of not knowing whether their relative is dead or alive. Coming back to Syria, the way we work in Syria itself is that we are basically going to submit cases to parties to the conflict of people who have disappeared, asking for answers, basically, and for us to be able then to give some information to the families. And the second thing we're also doing is we visit a certain number of detention centers where we're also going to submit a list of the missing persons, but there we also register detainees, and we're going to compare it to the list of the missing persons. So this is how we work. It's not enough, we know it. So we really want to have better results, basically, for the families today. So we still continue calling out to parties, to the different parties of the conflict in Syria to help us in this search. And I mean, this help is not something which is, it's an obligation parties to the conflict have of helping clarifying the fate of the missing persons. So again, we call also on all the parties to the conflict to help us in giving answers to the families of the disappeared.
Lucile Marbeau at the Red Cross, thank you very much.